we'll start our next chapter, chapter 3, cost behavior and forecasting. I did hand out a packet. Catherine, you don't have that packet. I don't think you'll really need it. I think you'll be able to follow along just fine today, and then I'll hand it to you on Monday if you come in. Weather, we're okay on Monday, I think.
That's all.
I don't think there was any snow in the forecast for a while, so hopefully that's the case. Due dates. I want to get back on track. Great job on getting the concept clips done, guys. February 11th, that was yesterday or whatever, on Monday. But I'm still shooting for February 20th, which normally I would take 4 class periods for chapter 3. I'm only going to take 3. I think we can do that adequately, cover everything that we need to, but we are going to move rather quickly. And then our exam will be on a Monday then, which is good because that's our 3-hour block. So that works out good for that. So that's the schedule. Try to at least get started with the multiple choice over the weekend. Even some of the brief exercises, you should be able to start some of those. Remember, all we have to do is open them, right? Open them up and see now. Attempt 1, and that will open up the brief exercise. Attempt, and then that'll open up the problem and so forth. So, chapter 3 begins on page 79. The Zingerman's Deli is the company profile. Just take a view of that or read that. It's a coffee shop / bakery. Is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's a deli. And what's interesting, what I like about this, they actually track 3,000 cost items for a deli. 3,000 different cost items. So just take a view of that, and they use those tracking mechanisms obviously for budgeting, planning, pricing, right? That's the goal with cost accounting. The discussion in chapter 3, before I do that, I do have this in my notes. This was a ad slogan back in the 1900s for Pepsi-Cola, and they had first changed their pricing. They went from 10 cents to 5 cents for a 12-ounce bottle. And obviously, they sold a lot more. It was half the price of what Coke was selling their bottle, 12-ounce bottle for. But what happened is that they sold so much that they more than offset the losses, and they actually made a ton of money selling it for half the price. And that's really what chapter 3 is about, is if we make more, our cost per unit comes down, and we actually make more money using a much lower price. So I thought that was interesting, so I just harvest that off the internet. So take a look at that. And also, I thought this was interesting. Costco, a big distributor in our area, they sell their rotisserie chicken for $5, which is way under price.
It's cheaper
It's
than
very
frozen
cheap.
chicken.
Yes, and they lose, I think, they lose $30 to $40 million a year at that price. So they know it's a loss, but they want to get you in, right? And that's the goal here. You buy something in addition to that rotisserie chicken. So companies use pricing then, knowing what their costs are. They can use pricing to be very competitive, as even though they may lose money on one item, they're certainly going to make it up on the other items. So just some cost behavior type real life examples, so to speak. So on page 80 then, we begin our definitions, right, of what types of cost behavior there are out there. They're listed right here. variable, fixed, and mixed. Those are the three we're going to cover in chapter 3. And the fixed cost means just that. The cost doesn't change, right? Cost does not change even though the output changes. So if I make one Pepsi bottle, or 2, or 3, or 4, my fixed cost doesn't change. The example that we have for fixed cost is depreciation. That's based on a per month amount, right? Doesn't matter how many items I sell, that amount is the same. Also, variable cost, our next behavior, that does change in total. So if I increase my production, my variable cost will increase in total. If I decrease my production, obviously my variable cost will decrease. Examples of variable cost, the big ones, direct material and direct labor. Direct material and direct labor. Now, remember, I can't plan, I cannot budget unless I know those behaviors. And the reason we budget is that we're going to compare, and that's what the control here is. Compare this budget number, right, to actual. Compare to actual. So when I meet with a client, we look at their budget every quarter. We look at what they should be having in those expensive cost categories, and then compare them to the actual. And right away I can see which one is not in line where it should be. And that's the one we focus in. It's hard to look at 3,000 items every quarter, right? So you want to focus on the ones that are not where they should be. And then what is our hope here is that we change our behavior, right? We make a better decision. Or maybe we got to find out why did our cost structure change so we can make modifications. You don't want to wait till the end of the year and say, oh boy, we should have did better, right? You want to do the upfront planning. The book then just goes into more detail on those definitions. Cost driver is the next one. This is on page, I don't have my glasses, so I'm really going to struggle here. 81. Catherine and Sam, he just came in and hit me in the head, so he broke my glasses, so I can't see really well. The cost driver is what causes cost to change. And companies need a measurement. In most cases, we're going to use machine hours to measure, right? Measure activity. If I could spell measure, that would be really good. So let's start over. Measure activity level. We got to track something other than the dollars, right? It could be even output. Number of units could be a measurement that we track. It could be labor hours. Could be a measurement that we track to determine how busy are we, right? At this level of activity, we should have this cost. If we have this level of activity, we should have this cost. So this is what this causal factor is what we're going to use to determine how busy are we. And it can even be non-numbers. It could be weather in degrees. So there's a discussion here about airline industries knowing that costs change when the weather changes. Or costs are different going west than there is going east because of the jet stream. So that also comes into play in budgeting costs, right? Relevant range is another term we need to understand. Our budget numbers or predictions, right, are only good for a certain level of activity. It's called the relevant range. So our budget numbers or predictions are only good for a certain level of activity. And they have a nice little chart. Here it is. This is on page, oh, this is not in the book, sorry. This is in your PowerPoint only. Volume, right? Cost driver. Measure of activities on the bottom. Cost is on the left. So based on our level of activity, our predictions are only good in the relevant range. Now think about it. Think about it. When we start out a project or a new item, making a new item, building a bear, right? We are slow initially because we don't really know, we're not really efficient yet, right? Or we don't have the employees trained very well until at a certain point. Then we start rolling, okay? That same problem occurs over here on the right side. We have too much production, right? And we might need to make a decision to expand or go into a bigger building. We're kind of flooded in this area. Now we're becoming more inefficient. So what is good is somewhere in between, some level of activity within the relevant range. So we need to know that because of our cost predictions. Once we hit a certain level, we got to change our cost predictions, right? So look at GM. What are they doing right now?
Yeah, too many vehicles sitting around.
Too many vehicles, so we're going to close plants.
Yep.
Okay, now my cost structure has changed dramatically. Those budgets I did maybe last year for this year need to be modified because all those costs are gone, right? And we're producing fewer cars, which means what? Our cost per unit is probably going to go up. So now I got to figure out where can I cut costs somewhere else. So something to really be aware of when we're doing these cost predictions. Fixed costs defined in more detail. These are some examples. Remember, in today's manufacturing world, it's the most or largest component in many businesses. We have lots of equipment worth multi-millions, 200 million for a paper machine. That cost is here and extremely important to understand, as it says. What is its relationship? And this is what I really like you to know. This is on page 82. Look at this as a definition. What do we say? As a total cost, it's the same, right? $32,000 in this case for a supervisor's salary. But look on a per unit basis. What happens when I make more? My cost is going down, right? I'm decreasing. So as production goes up, my cost per unit comes down. This is why PepsiCo, right, decided to make and cut their price and sell more, because they could, because their cost per unit was coming down. I love going to a second shift. Because I could use the same equipment, right? Just double my units of production by going to a second shift. Now, we never got to double. What's the problem with second shift? It's hard to train somebody to be motivated when nobody's around, right? When most of the staff is not there, supervisors or whatever. So it was always very hard to get a second shift going. And not many people like second shift, right? It's not the best time of day for most people. So, something to think about if you are going to second shift. But the goal here is for you to know on a per unit basis, right? As production goes up, costs come down. This is an inverse relationship. Right? Inverse means what? Opposite. Opposite. Up, down. All right. There'll be some multiple choice questions on that. Know the difference between some might say total cost and some might say per unit. So you got to look at both ways. This is just more slides on what we just talked about. More definitions. I would like you to know these two on page 84 of the book. Know the difference between discretionary and committed fixed cost. It's not any different. It's a fixed cost. It's just the type of fixed cost. Discretionary means optional. Optional fixed cost. Committed means required fixed cost. The book gives some good examples of both. Discretionary, the example here is advertising budget. We can put something on channel 11, right, or not. We can make that decision relatively quickly. The other example for the committed was a lease. Much harder to break a lease, especially on a building that you signed for 1, 2, or 3 years. You're pretty much committed to pay that amount and legally have to pay it, right? So a committed is like a lease or a rental. So just know definition, what those mean, also some examples of the two. Sam and Catherine, how are you doing? Great. Excellent. Thank you, guys. Yeah, hang in there, Catherine. It might be Blackboard that's giving you some trouble also. All right. Here are the examples. Again, on page 84. Variable cost, more detail. As we know, they change as output changes, right? But there's another way to view variable costs, and that's here. This is on page, this is not in the textbook either. This is only in the PowerPoint. Very, it's almost the opposite of fixed. Here's my total cost on the left. Right? That's our definition. As our production volume goes up, my costs go up, right? In total. But on a per unit basis, what do we see? It's constant. Constant. So it's $20 per unit in this case. So you have to, in a verbal definition, know how to define variable cost. In total, it changes in direct proportion, right? On a per unit basis, it's constant or the same. So be very careful of those definitions when you get to the test or even in the assignment for chapter 3. Is everybody comfortable with that? Any thoughts on that? Costs have behavior? Isn't that weird?
A little bit.
Starting on page 86, they really get into cost behavior more than what we will, but I do want to point out some things here. Semi-variable, not exactly a straight line, so it looks like this. Some costs increase at a decreasing rate. Now this is really getting into it. And some costs increase at an increasing rate. I'm not going to have you be responsible for that. This is much more in-depth than we will ever get into in this chapter. So just be aware that not all costs are perfect, right, in how they behave. Let's jump to mixed. This was the third one that we're going to deal with in chapter 3, though. And this begins on page 88. And really, the word has the definition in it. It's both. It has a fixed part and a variable part. The author uses this example, supervisor's salary plus the cost of the supplies. Well, the supervisor's salary is fixed. The cost of the supplies as an indirect material is variable. I like to use, for me, and I think the author does too, utility bill. On your utility bill, there's usually a base charge for the month, right? Mm-hmm. The base charge is the fixed part. And the kilowatt hours is the variable part. So much per hour, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my example of a mixed cost. Has both a fixed part and a variable part. And here's the printout. This one I do, yes, this one is in your book. This is on page 88. And I am going to write on this a little bit. So if you can jump to there, that would be awesome. We're looking at a sales expense. Now, granted, sales expense is not a product cost, it's a selling expense. But we certainly can use this concept of behavior to come up with a cost prediction for any expense or cost item. So, here we have a formula. They call this a cost formula. And you will be creating these. You'll be creating these in this chapter. A cost formula is used, again, to do what? To make a prediction. And again, we want a prediction so I can compare it to actual for control purposes. Your job is to control and safeguard the assets. As accountants, that's your job. So, This cost formula, it's a mixed cost. The fixed part is 300,000. The variable cost is the $25 per unit sold, right? Per unit is my cost driver. Kind of using the terminology again as to what we're trying to accomplish. You notice that the $25 cost per unit, right? It's the same. For every unit sold, it's $25 more. So this person's expense is his base salary of $300 plus the commission, the $25 per unit sold. Now, we're going to use algebra or geometry in chapter 3. So we have terminology. One of it where it crosses the 0 point. Does anybody remember what that's called if you've read ahead chapter 3? It's the from geometry class in high school. Anybody remember that? No?
It's been a couple of years.
Couple of years. I won't tell you how many for me. I'm approaching 40. Intercept. Intercept is that point at where it meets the 0. That intercept is also known as, which is 300,000. It's also known as our fixed cost. So if I make 0 units, right, I'm going to still have to pay this person 300,000 if I sell nothing. So that's my fixed cost. Another term is slope. Rise over run, remember that? That's slope. How fast is it climbing over the run? So slope is also known as our variable rate. That's the $25. That's the $25. There's going to be one more term, but we don't have it. That's going to be an Excel discussion. We are going to be able to use Excel for chapter 3. Aren't you excited? I am. Something to use other than just CNL. So, but that's what we're going to come up with. We're going to come up with cost formulas. We're going to have a couple different methods to do that. High-low method, scatter graph, which is another Excel, and least squares regression. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish.
Which one did you say was the cost driver?
Cost driver here would be units sold. Good question, Diane.
Thank you.
It could be machine hours, it could be labor hours, yep. But in this case,
Is
it's
that always on the bottom?
That's always going to be your X. So this is our X. And if you want to keep going, let's keep going. Y is our total cost. And that's what we're trying to predict, is our total cost for each cost item.
Okay.
Do you have room? Do you still have room? This is also, the X is also known as the independent variable. Independent means I can change it, right? Y here is called the dependent variable. So we're going to use these quite often interchangeably. Because again, we're going to have multiple choice questions. In my cost formula, right, what is the independent variable? Well, that's my X. In my cost formula, where is the slope? Well, that's the $25. So you got to pick where that information is located. Now, page 88 to 90, the author gets again deeper into cost behavior types. This is really a fourth type, kind of. And I don't know why. They have narrow steps, and guess what? They have, those are narrow. See how narrow they are? Cute, aren't they cute? And then they have wide, which means that the steps are wider. Okay? They all are the same thing. It's a fixed cost that jumps. So please know a step cost is a fixed cost. So a step cost is a semi-fixed. They call it semi-fixed. So an example, refrigerated trucks. And I think the author uses this example because of our company profile, Zigerman. Zigerman? I'm not sure if I spelled that right. The deli place. They have a big rush around Christmas. Okay? So in October, they're gearing up, making all their items to sell. But the problem is they don't have enough refrigeration space for this big rush in Christmas. So what they do is rent these trucks, lease these refrigerated trucks to hold their product until Christmas comes around. So their production level is very uneven. So at some point, they're going to have more trucks, right? So that's what this step cost is. Rent is a fixed, lease is a fixed cost, and it has to jump when production levels are outside of the relevant range. So now my cost structure will change to accommodate that increase. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. In chapter 1, Buy Costumes is a Wisconsin company, and they have the same trouble. They rent out costumes. Well, what's the big month for costumes? Halloween. So, so they have to, again, have this huge storage capacity to meet the demand in the month of October, similar to that function. Just know what a step cost is. It's a fixed cost that jumps. All right, let's give this stuff a whirl. This cost behavior definition type stuff. I hope this is your first item. Yep, in the packet. The variable and fixed cost problem are exercise 34 on page 127. We'll just kind of go around the room here. Sam and Catherine, you'll be included. So be ready. All we have to do on problem 34 is decide whether it's variable or fixed. So this will be that matching. Remember you had to draw a line to match one item to another. This is what you'll have to do for the exam. You'll have to draw a line. Which one is it, variable or fixed? So here we go. Power to operate a drill. And it says to drill holes in the wooden frames of these futons. So our cost object is a futon. Going back to chapter 2. Everybody knows what a futon is, right? Okay. It's a little couch that we turn into a bed. Kind of cute.
I used to have one of those. They're so uncomfortable.
Yeah, usually are. Serves its purpose though. So that's the scope, right? That's the scope, right? So, power is what? Utilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, which of the two, it's not, there's no mixed choice here. Which of these two would be relevant? What do you think? Variable. Yep. Would it not make sense that if I made more futons, I would have a larger utility bill? I'm running the machines more, running time more. Yep, perfect. Austin, how about B?
Fixed.
Think of the cost object, which is this chair or couch. We're covering it, right? If I make one, I'm going to use so much, right? If I make two, I'm going to use double.
Oh, okay.
So it does change in amount as I make more of them,
Okay.
right? So this one should then be what?
Variable.
Variable. Austin, going back to chapter 2, we have 3 product costs: material, labor, and overhead, right? Cloth is to the cost object. Which one of the 3?
What were the options?
Material, labor, or overhead?
Oh, material.
Yeah, this is an example of direct material. Direct material will always be variable. Will always be variable. Ruby, salary of the factory receptionist.
Is that fixed?
Yes. Keyword is salary. The author, if you see the word salary, automatic fixed. Which of the 3 product costs, Ruby, are we in for salary? Material, labor, overhead.
Labor? Oh, wait. No, overhead.
Overhead.
Yeah.
Good save. Manufacturing overhead, right?
Yeah.
This person is not working on the futon, is she? Or he? I was being this person. I don't want to assume, right? They're not working on the part. They're actually supportive in nature of the production. So it would be manufacturing overhead. Michelle?
Variable.
I would say that too, but the author says fixed. This is a gray one, gray area. Don't you hate that? It could be either or. Author says fixed because think of a party. Usually, yes, you do plan for a certain number of people, but if somebody else brings other people along with, food runs out, too bad, right? We're not going to get more. So it's a constant fixed amount. So that's how they view it. Now, if you did do it by person and that's how you budget and plan, then yes, it could be variable. So I couldn't mark it wrong on the test if I saw something like this. You comfortable with that? Which of the 3 product costs are we dealing with?
Overhead.
Excellent. Is it considered manufacturing?
Wouldn't just be just
How come?
overhead?
How come it's no, it is manufacturing. How come it's
Factory.
Factory
It's
employees.
factory.
factory employees? Yep. Very good. Diane,
Yes,
fuel for fork truck.
it would be variable.
Excellent. Product cost, which one?
Oh, where are we going? Director, labor, overhead, manufacturer overhead.
Excellent. Very good. The poly, depreciation on the factory.
Fixed.
Very good. Excellent. What product cost?
Overhead.
Good. Might as well do the next one, right? Same thing, right? Fixed. Walter. How about these wages?
Would that be fixed?
Hmm.
Variable? They do overtime?
Yeah, when you see the word wage, it's per hour, so that's an automatic variable.
Okay, yeah,
This is probably the more important question here. Which of the 3 product costs?
labor?
Very good. How did you know it was direct labor?
It sounds like it.
That sounds like it. There's something in it though that tells me it's direct labor. What is it?
The assemble.
Assemble. Here's the key word, guys. They're making it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. I'm gonna do the next one. Which, Liz, which product type though? Product cost for this one, I.
Overhead.
How did you know?
Paying manufacturer.
So they're not actually making the part, right? They're not actually making,
Yeah.
so then yes, it's manufacturing overhead. Excellent. Catherine and Sam, I ran out of questions, sorry. You'll get the next one. Teresa, cloth rigs.
Variable.
Excellent, good job. Which product cost?
Materials.
Careful, careful.
Cloth rigs is white. Overhead.
Good save. Why is it not direct materials?
Because it could be used for something else. The cloth could be,
Do you actually see this cloth rig on the cost object? It's not traced, right? And I might use this rig on 1, 2, 3 different ones, maybe 4, right? So if I don't see it, it's not easily traced, right, to the cost object. That's what makes it manufacturing overhead. Is everybody clear on that? This is a little review of chapter 2, what we just did. I got one more here, 57, let's jump to this. Now instead of 2, we have 4 to pick from. You lucky dog, you. 4, you got a 25% chance. So we got fixed, variable, mixed, and step.
I almost want to say fixed.
It's got a fixed part in it.
Yeah, but it's kind of like step cost too, because there's that $15 per hour of
Well,
technical time.
But that's
Or that's a variable.
the variable
Yeah, 'cause
part.
it changes.
So then what has it, what's it gotta be?
Oh, it's mixed.
Mixed, yeah. This is a mixed cost example. So the fixed, he was right, it's right here, it's so much per month. Does that matter based on units produced? No, not at all. But, here's my cost driver per hour of technical time. That's the variable part. Now, there might be a couple on here that could be multiple answers, so just be aware of that. Tom, you're next. Fuel cost for the motor vehicles. Variable? Yeah, that's pretty much all variable. As I use the vehicles more, I'm gonna spend more on fuel, right? Very good. Kershaw, you lucky dog. Cost of, you're not even old enough. Cost of beer for a bar, what do you think?
Fixed.
It's fixed amount per barrel probably, right?
Well, I guess, yeah, it would be variable since they could buy different amounts.
Yeah, yeah, a bar would say, this is their direct material, right? It changes for the amount of people in the bar, right, as they anticipate, correct. All right, Catherine, I'm gonna jump to you for D. Are you with us? Cost of computer printers and copiers in our college. Excellent. Catherine says step cost with a question mark. correct. That is correct. Now,
Why is
we
that?
gotta talk about this. We're assuming some things here. Let me try to get back to Catherine. I don't know what that means. I hope it's like you're excited that you picked that answer.
Or exclamation point.
Oh, probably like question mark, exclamation point. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe.
Oh, okay. She's for
I
sure.
just think-
All right, sounds good. Step cost. We're assuming that these printers or copiers are leased. So, and the lease is a fixed amount. It's not per page printed. A lot of copiers, though, are per page printed. So, we're assuming a lot here. So it's a lease. It's so much. And as we need more copies, the machine has a capacity, so we might need a second machine. So it jumps up to a new level. That's why it's a step. So this is a fixed cost because it's a lease, a fixed cost that does change as I need more copiers. Sam, you get the next one, E. Excellent. Perfect. Rent is like a lease, so therefore it's fixed. Excellent. All right, back to Austin.
Thank you.
Salary.
Fixed.
Yep, salary is always fixed. So much per month, right? Per pay period. Very good. Ruby, wages at a counter.
Variable.
Variable, always. Wages, again, for this author is hourly. Right? So much per hour. Michelle?
Fixed.
Very good. You see the word salary in here? It is fixed, but what else could it be? This person can only do 120. If I gotta do 121, I gotta do what? Hire a second person. So you are right, it is fixed, Michelle, but the better answer is a step cost here. Again, could I mark Michelle wrong? No.
I mean, you could.
I could, but it is a fixed cost that does change based on a cost driver, in this case, number of cleanings. So that's what makes it a step. Diane, you have the last one?
Mixed.
Pardon?
Mixed.
Mixed. Yep, very good. So that too will be on the exam, picking the right type of cost behavior for the activity that we're talking about. Here's the fixed amount, and it's so much variable per kilowatt. Is this kilowatt cost per hour? All right, let's take our first break here. We'll stop at this point. We'll come back and we'll start looking at how do we do this formula, this cost formula. Boom. So, page 91 is where we're at in the book. We're going to look at ways to separate costs. Now remember, we only have to worry about cost separation on the mixed one, because the mixed costs behave partially fixed, partially variable. So the whole rest of the chapter is this cost separation discussion. And in some cases, the costs are such that it may not be worth the trouble, the time, the effort to do a cost separation. So companies will pick certain accounts and say, its behavior is mostly fixed, so that's what we're going to call it is fixed. There's a small, very small part that's variable. So let's just make it easy and just call it fixed. So there is that type of analysis also done at this point. So looking at our mixed costs then, we are going to use 3 different methods. Here they are. High-low, scatter graph, which is an Excel function. It's just a chart. And also Excel function is going to be the least squares of regression method. Now, this is discussed in greater detail in Appendix A in Chapter 3. And in that appendix, it talks about downloading an analysis tool path. Do not do that. Do not do that. We are going to be using 3 Excel formulas for the least squares regression. Slope, intercept, R squared, also known as RSQ. These are statistical formulas in Excel that will handle everything we need to do for the method of least squares regression. So I will hit on that before class ends today, those 3 formulas. Slope, intercept, RSQ.
What does RSQ stand for?
R squared.
R squared?
Yep. It's also known as the goodness of fit. How well is the driver how good is the driver at predicting our cost? So we'll talk about that briefly today. Good question. Keep them coming. So what's our goal here? Is to get this total cost, right? Our cost formula is our goal. So the dependent variable as a review is our total cost. Please know that for the test. You have to know that for the test. We're depending on something else, right? We're depending on the independent variable. Which is units in this case. This is our cost driver. So X is our independent variable. X is our independent variable. Slope is our variable rate. Intercept is our fixed cost. And that's why we're going to use Excel slope intercept to find the variable rate, to find the fixed cost, using method of least squares regression. Is everybody clear on these terms? These are the ones we need to know. This is all on page 91. Or actually, I'm on 92 now. Page 92. Sam and Catherine, are you okay? Okay, excellent, thank you. Independent, intercept, slope, just discussed. We've already talked about these on that other slide. Example 3, how about 1, is our first attempt to come up with a cost formula. I'm just going to jump to the answer. They finally come up with, for their cost formula, the fixed part, which was $250, and then 10 cents basically per page is the cost formula. So why are we doing this? Because now we can predict what our cost should be at different numbers of pages, right? 4,400 versus 5,000 versus 6,000. And that's the goal here, is to come up with that budget number. There is an exercise in 37 I'm just gonna do the cost formula here. It's not rocket science. They basically give it to us already. But I wanted to show how the formula should look, right? Y is our total cost. X is our independent variable. F and V are our fixed cost and variable rate. So to write for problem 37 or exercise 37, their cost formula is 1,750,000 plus 125 X. Which number is our slope, guys? On this formula, which number is our slope? 125. Very good, Ruby. And which number is our intercept?
1 million.
The 1,750,000, right? Just in case they ask, right? Looking at our formula, which is the slope, which number is the intercept? Very good. Remember, this is our fixed cost. Slope is our variable rate. Now the rate times x, that is our variable cost. So you may have to compute the variable cost, right? The variable cost amount is our variable rate times x. So know the difference between a variable rate, which is the 125, versus a variable cost, which is the rate times x. There is a difference in terminology there. There's a variable rate, which is the slope, and a variable cost, which is the rate times x. Isn't it nice we haven't said anything about debits and credits yet? You won't in chapter 3. There's not one thing on debit or credit in chapter 3. All right. Could you turn to this page, page 93. Chapter 3 is not hard as long as we're using the right numbers for the right spot, kind of, basically. So, here we have some activities. This is last year, January through October. We looked at the results. Our total material handling costs were $2,000, $3,000, $27.80, and so forth. And then we have number of moves. So, the number of moves is our cost driver, which is what? Going to our cost formula, y equals fixed cost plus v times x. What is number of moves in the cost formula?
Independent variable?
Independent variable, Diane. Very good. Which is x. Here's our x. The cost is our dependent y variable. So the independent x is on the right, our dependent cost is on the left. So we're assuming, right, this company is assuming that this cost driver, number of moves, is a good predictor of what our material costing would be. Doesn't that make sense? So we're looking at our fork truck drivers, basically, right? The person that runs it, their wages, the machine itself, the fork truck itself, all the maintenance cost on that fork truck. So there's a lot of information that comes up to the $2,000 amount. We're trying to come up with a formula to predict.
So what is the month?
Month is just a way of organizing the data.
Okay, so it's none of the above.
None of the above.
No.
We're not gonna use the month or weather to determine if that's another driver of the cost. There are computer simulation programs that are available that would do that, but not us. We're not that technical. We're not that fancy. We only have one X, not multiple X's, like the airline industry would. So now that we have this information, we're going to try our first method. It's called the high-low method. And I think the book does a nice job doing steps. I like steps. It helps me remember. There's 3 steps. Step 1, find the high and low point. Step 2, using either one, find the variable rate. Step 3, find the fixed cost. That's it. Well, 4 is the actual formula, right? So, let's do step 1. Find the low and high point. But I want to make sure you're using the X's, high and low. So often students want to go to the dollar high-low. No, don't do that. The X's, and in this case, that would be the moves. So what moves, what number is the high number? 500. What's the low number? 100. That's step 1. Got it done already. Pretty easy. Draw a line over, because sometimes students grab the wrong number, right? Pretty easy. It's a column. You take the wrong row. So now we're going to go to step 2. So we're going to take those 4 numbers, the number of moves, and the cost of those moves. The bottom number is always the X's. The high point was 500, the low point was 100. Oh, yeah.
Excuse me.
No problem. Oh, you could have stayed. I had an extra packet too. What was my high cost at the 500? Mm-hmm. So put dollars on top. And the low cost at the 100? 2. What are we predicting? Which is also known as our what?
X.
No, not X, not X, not X.
Slope.
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 That's our slope. Yep. Then what's step 2? What was the answer?
1375.
5,500 divided by 400 is 1375?
Yes.
Okay. 1375 per X, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can start creating your formula now. Now that we know the variable rate, I can now do step 3, which is our fixed cost. They do a nice job showing the formula right here. Our cost at the high point was 7,500. The variable rate from step 2 was 1375. What was the X at the high point?
500.
500. There we have it. That's it. So 1375, I should put this parentheses, right? Order of operation. Order of operation, just like you're doing it in Excel. You gotta do that multiplication first, and then subtract that from the 7,500. What did the author come up with for an answer?
625.
625. And what is the fixed cost known as in geometry world? Intercept. Intercept. Very good. Our intercept is 625. That's where it crosses the 0 point, right? That's where it crosses the 0 point. So y equals 625 plus 1375 times x. You just completed the high-low method. It's a mixed cost, right? This is a mixed cost because it has a fixed part and a variable part. We only do this for mixed costs. So when you tell your friends and family this weekend you learned about cost behaviors, both mixed, fixed, and variable, they'll just be blown away. And tell them, yes, they can have this much fun every day when they come here per county. Cool. Here's just another example using different numbers, right? Exercise 2. What's x, what's y here, guys? X is machine hours. Y then has got to be the cost, right? Cost is what we're trying to predict. What is our utility cost at different machine hour levels? Now, do you see how cost is on the left and x is on the right? Do you think every problem will be that method or that way? No.
Probably not.
X's are going to be on the left and the costs will be on the right. Why would we do that to you? To be sure you know what X is and what Y is, right? So these, don't get used to these always being the Y's on the first column and the X's on the second. You can put them in any order, doesn't matter.
That's why I screw up in the intermediate, because I'm so, like, such a habit of doing
Sure.
year all year.
Yep.
So that's why I did a test and just I didn't look at the date. Yeah.
Happens.
Jenny gave me something to fall back, so which is nice, but it was like I should have been looking at that.
Yeah, I know. That's hard to do. Exercise 3, 4, all the same review. So let's try one, guys. 44. We're only going to do one today. I think that's all we're going to have time for. Exercise 44. It's on page 133 of your textbook. It's a tanning salon. Again, it's a service industry. You can use these concepts for whatever company you're in. So here we're not making anything, we're just doing a service. So what she's done is did a research project, basically. She went through all of last year from January through August. She found out how many tans she did each month, and then total cost. This is her entire cost for all her expenses together. And now she wants to come up with a cost formula to predict what her cost should be at different levels of tans. Tanning is X's, right? Tanning is our cost driver. Okay, so what month is the high month? What month is the low month?
March is the high.
March is the high.
May seems like the low.
And what numbers are we looking at to get the high and the low? The appointments, right? So be sure you're looking at the X's when determining the high, because you could have an occasion where the cost was higher or lower in a particular month that is not for the high and low for the X. So don't get tricked, because otherwise the problem is not going to be good. So we got step 1 done. Step 2, compute the variable rate, right? So now we got to go to our formula. Variable rate equals high dollars minus low, high activity level minus low activity level. please be sure the dollars are on top when you do this formula. So at March, what was my high cost?
Oh, what?
3,780.
2,000.
2,780.
90.
90. And our low cost?
1,790.
And we have 3,500 and 1,500 for activity levels. So it's $1,000 over 2,000. So our variable rate is 50 cents per tan. Now think of our variable costs in a tanning salon. What's probably the biggest variable cost?
Electricity.
Electricity, yeah. Very good. There could be some indirect materials and stuff that would be variable too. But usually just utilities would be the biggest one. That's step 2. Step 3 then, our fixed cost is equal to our total cost minus our variable cost. Right? Total cost minus is equal to, minus our variable cost equals fixed. So, we can pick the high cost or the low, it shouldn't matter. The author tends to use the high cost, $27.90. Minus, how do I write the variable cost equation? Yep, what am I multiplying?
0.5 times
Right.
3,500.
Yeah, the variable rate, 50 cents, times the high activity level, which is 3,500. Why can't I use 1,500 here? That was the other activity level.
Because you use the high end of the.
Because I used the high cost,
Yep.
right? So these have to be the same activity level.
Corresponding.
Right, corresponding, very good, excellent. So be sure you're using the corresponding activity level for that cost, $27.90 minus $17.50, which is half of 3,500. Gives me a fixed cost of 1,040. Yay. You just split your first mixed cost. How exciting. First one. So it feels good. What's my formula? Y equals 1,040 plus 50 times X. What is X?
The number of.
Number of tans, right?
Number of appointments.
Appointments.
Tan appointments. You just wanted me to write out appointments. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. Okay? X is our independent variable, right? Y is our dependent. That's what we're trying to predict. So then that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a prediction now. So here we go. What should my cost be if in September we did 2,500 tans? So we'll just put it in. 1,040 is our fixed cost, depreciation, maybe a salaries in there, right? Plus our 50-cent variable rate times 2,500, number of tanning appointments, gives me a cost prediction of what?
22.90.
prediction. Is that something that is perfect? No. But now, I can compare that prediction to what?
The actual
The actual cost for September. So what if my actual cost for September came at 3,500? Would you be concerned?
That would
Yeah, it's 1,300 more than what I, or 1,200 more than what I predicted. Yep, that's about a 50% increase in cost. I'd be panicking right now, right? But what do we always have to be careful of before we panic? We gotta find out why it's different, for sure. But what else could be wrong?
tennis session might be longer.
No, let's just assume the tanning sessions are all the same yet.
Well,
Variables
variables
cost
or
might have
weather or.
increased.
The variable cost might have increased. Or what was you saying
I
there?
was saying, weather could have a, impact on it, or maybe there was a coupon, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so what
So a lot.
what do we have, as accountants, what do we have to be careful of? We have to be careful of these two numbers. Is our fixed cost truly 1,040?
No.
It's a prediction, right? So, if I go on the floor and I come up to Liz and say, geez, Liz, your production wasn't very good. You're supposed to do this many units. Right? That's my job as a cost accountant. I gotta figure out why she's not producing as many units as she should. What is she gonna say to me? Well, where'd you get that dumb number anyway? Right? True, right? Or she'll say, well, you don't realize you were here yesterday, my machine was down for 4 hours. Yeah, I wasn't. So there are many, many factors that if you're not going to be liked in the production facility, they kind of hide when you walk through. The reason that you are there is to control costs, and you have to evaluate performance, right? Including the operational performance. That is your job, is to do that. Because you're not going to be able to compete if you're not competing efficiently and well. Then we're all out of jobs, right? Can they go to China? Or whatever.
Is there a gauge percentage that's considered okay? I mean, or is a company defined if it's within 10%?
It really
or-
depends on the company. Some companies can be, they're very consistent. Other companies, like job shops, it's up and down, depends on the month and how much activity they have in one month versus another. P&G, Procter & Gamble, making toilet paper, I would assume their costs are very similar every month unless something really drastic changes in tariffs, right?
For my client, I know.
So, but other companies would be very different. So you have to, again, every company's management is different. So that's why cost accountants, again, it takes years and years and years of understanding how that cost behaves before you can make any predictions. Yeah, it's very hard. And again, you have to be old. That's lots of years of experience. What are the issues with high-low method? So we talked about prediction problems, right? If you turn to page 'There's a nice little chart, if I can see it without my
It's on
glasses.
page 102.
Excellent, Michelle,
So on
thank
like
you.
the advantages and disadvantages.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. Excellent, I just got there too. Page 102, please. has the advantages and disadvantages of all three: the high-low method, the scatter graph, the method of least squares regression. And one of the problems or disadvantages, it says potential for misrepresentation of data and the possibility of outliers. So misrepresentation means one of the problems is we're only looking at two data points, the high and the low. I'm not including any of the other 6 or 7 or whatever was in that list. That's a problem. Because if one of those two, the author calls it an outlier. Outlier means unusual. Something might have happened. A tsunami hit us, right? And caused so much trouble that we weren't aware of. Or it caused us to incur more expense than we weren't predicting. Something happened, or a machine went down, right? For that period of time. That's unusual. That's why it was so low. Okay? So that is a huge problem with the high-low method. So look to this chart for those type of multiple choice questions. Method of least squares is the most accurate. It includes all the data points. We're going to use Excel to do that. So we'll kind of come back to that also next week. All right, well, we're going to skip this one for now. This is a fun problem, guys. 2 pages long. Woo! Can't wait till next week. I got to make sure you come back for more. Scatter graph. Not really a lot to do here for scatter graph. Just know what it is. It puts a line of best fit through all the data points again. We're going to use Excel to do scatter graphs. This discussion's on page, or starts on page 97. I think we've really kind of talked quite a bit about this. You visually fit a line to the data points. You can look at multiple points at once. I'll talk about the extra credit come Monday. Let's do this. I'm just going to show you the scatter graph. So here it is. I'm going to just create another one. I have some data points. I just made these numbers up. I don't even know where I got them. So my number of moves, similar to our example, and then our total cost prediction. So for the scatter graph, it's a chart. Right, so I'm under the insert menu bar up here. And again, we'll practice this next week too, on Monday. So don't panic if I'm going too fast or you're not sure where I'm in Excel. I'm just up here under the insert. And what we're going to be doing is a scattered chart, which is in the middle. So to do a chart, though, you have to select the data points, both the X's and the Y's, right? X's, if you put the X's first, that'll be always on the bottom, or the chart, and the Y's will be on the Y's, the vertical, right? The geometry function. So I'm just going to go over here, and there are different types of scatter graphs. Some are really kind of cool. The wavy look. Dot to dot. I don't know, not much different. But you want to do the first one. Not too exciting, it just gives you the points, right? The X's are on the bottom, the Y's are on the left, and the points are listed here. And with all charts then, guys, you can add things to it, right? That's what this plus icon is here. Just add things to it. Like from Ledger, right? We added axis titles, left and right and bottom. We added, I don't think we don't need to add data labels. But one new thing you can add on a scatter graph is a trend line. And that's where I'm getting this line. So Excel can then predict where is the line of best fit. So that's the scatter graph concept. And what's nice with the scatter graph is you can do more options and add the equation on the chart. Isn't that cool? And also with the trend line, you can add to see the intercept. So I'm going to go backward 100, right? I stop at the 100 point. I want to get to 0. So if I go backwards, and again, guys, don't panic. I'm going to be doing this next week as well. I just kind of wanted to introduce to you that chart. And that's really all I'm looking for in the chart is that option. And you can see that where it crosses the 0 point is around 1400. So just be aware of that for that particular chart. I suppose I was supposed to click on the line before I did that. But anyway, since I'm here, the method of least squares regression, it's also done in Excel. I've got listed here the RSQ, or R squared, slope, intercept. It's super easy, guys. So here you have to go to formulas. So now I'm on the formulas icon, more functions, because what we want to do now is statistical functions. There are 3 of them: the R squared, the slope, and the intercept. So they're in alphabetical order. R squared is here, and it pulls up a chart, and I can select the Y's, and I can, oh, I did this wrong. Gary, bad Gary. Y's, right? X's. There we go. And guess what? Slope is just that easy. More functions, statistical, slope, go to your S's. Excel, for some reason, asks the Y's first. That's what threw me. And then the X's. And then more functions, statistical, intercept, I, F, G, H, I, the Y's, and X's. Probably the biggest mistake is that students might drop and not select all of the cells that they need to. So just be careful. I mean, look at the Y's and the X's. Make sure you start and stop at the same 5 and 11 in this case. And if you notice, these numbers are exactly like the chart numbers. The slope is $17.28. The fixed cost is $1,410 with an RSQ of 98%. Anything over 90 here, guys, is awesome. In other words, this X, which is moves, is 99% good at predicting our total cost. Goodness of fit. Anything over 90 is awesome. Then you're pretty confident that that formula will be a good predictor for your total cost. All right, I know I rushed through. Oh, I can't go away yet. Sam, Catherine, are you okay out there? You're awake? That's cute, you used the same word, yep. Awesome. What I want to do is look at your problem, your 25-point problem. Which is problem 68. Could I have you turn there into your book? Because we've gone through everything I think that's required for problem 68 already. So if you want to this weekend, you know, start a fire and open up your cost book like I do.
And throw it in the fire?
No.
Oh.
No, it's relaxing. This is really relaxing stuff, isn't it? You can work with on your 25-point problem. Kind of chill out. With some hot cocoa, that's always good too. Throw it in the fire. Just shout.
Did I say that out loud?
I think you did. Requirement number 1 is to create a scatter graph. I wasn't going to give you this, but now I am. Sam and Catherine, I don't have this to you. I'm going to give you extra credit in problem 68.
What problem is that?
68, this is our 25-point problem.
68.
The one I have up currently. Catherine and Sam, I'll email you this afternoon so that you have it. For 3 points, please give it only 3 points. Yes, it's not that hard. I would like you to create a scatter graph in Excel. And this is due on the 20th, so a week from today, along with your other assignments. Because to have you answer this question, yes or no, when you have 3 checks, is kind of pointless. So I wanted to make it more robust. Can I use that word? A little more fun. Robust, fun, kind of go together. So I would like you to create a scatter graph of the data points. Machine hours to power cost. We're trying to predict power cost for problem 68. So do that. I will have a link in Blackboard where you can submit it and I can take a look at it. In addition, there are these, I would like also on this Excel file to have all the method of least squares computations. The variable rate computation, which is slope, the fixed cost, which is intercept, and then the coefficient r squared, right, is the third formula. That too should be on this Excel file. Similar to what I did here on my sample, where I showed the scatter graph. Look at the nice title. Look at the legends and the axis titles. Make sure the numbers are formatted, right? Make it look nice. You can put the chart within the data section, that's fine. But then also in a separate area have the 3 computations listed. Because again, I want to see that you can use the Excel program to find those answers, because on your test for chapter 3, you will need to have Excel open as well. Because it's going to ask you, what is the intercept? What is the slope using least squares method? Right? So I want this Excel file working properly, and then all you have to do for the test is put in the X's, put in the Y's, whammo, it's all done. Right? How simple. Now, you can see on the questions, for the coefficient of determination, round to 1 decimal place as a what? Percent. So I'm in this box here, in that percent. So rounding to how many decimal places to get 1 as a percent means what? would have to be 3, right? Remember a decimal? Can I write on here? Let's just assume it's a bad coefficient of determination, 25 point what? 2%. So wouldn't it be cool to have the round command on your R² formula to 3 locations, right? Then it does it automatically. Don't show me 3, I want it rounded to 3. Do you know what I mean by that? Don't go to your Excel program by R² and just go to the home position and increase my decimals and show 1 decimal place. That's not rounding, right? I've got to physically come in here, type in the word round, parens, remember ledger guys, comma 3, right?
Right?
Okay. Because behind this number, right, if I keep going, is it really rounded to 3?
No.
I'm just having fun right now. Okay? So that's the goal, is to have that rounded to 3. And if I'm looking at a rate, what am I rounding to? I already gave it to you. Rounding to 2. How fun. Fun with words. Different 2. And intercept would be also rounded to what? 2. They're dollars, right? Both of those slope and fixed cost are dollar amounts, so they should be rounded to 2 places. So that's the goal here. To do this project, guys, once you have your Excel done, you're probably looking at what, 15, 20 minutes and you're done, I would guess, once you got it laid out and it's ready to go. Now you will have to rerun the regression for number 4 without a data point.
Okay.
So you can do it on the same worksheet, or you can create a second worksheet with this data listed without the first one. I mean, you can just delete, right? And you're done. Then it doesn't include that first. Well, you'd have to delete the row, so because you don't want that quarter shown. But anyway, that's the goal with question 4. Consider that first observation as an outlier, no good, right? And redo the results, which is better. And do I have a question on that? I wanted to do more in there, but that's okay. All right, that's it. You're good. Thank you for coming, Sam and Catherine. I'll email you the extra credit so you have that in your hands. We will see you on Monday. I think Monday looked pretty good weather-wise, so if you can't make it in though, if you're still shoveling, please collaborate. Collaborate if you can, or if you need to. Let me know if you're doing that, please.